Hey guys, what's up? This is Insanity. Got a gameplay of Twisted Metal on the PS3. I already uploaded a video of all the boss fights on Twisted difficulty with gold medals acquired on my other channel, but this is a fresh, re-recorded from scratch video of the same thing. Two of the three boss fights went by faster than on the video I uploaded on my other channel, so that's a nice bonus. I was contemplating on what my first gameplay video of Twisted Metal PS3 was going to be when I've uploaded gameplay of all the Twisted Metals before this, some of them for the first time. There were a few ideas floating around in my head. One idea was just to upload a standard non-commentated gameplay showcasing all the levels in the game while using different vehicles on each one. The second was to do a live commentary gameplay of story mode, which ended up being somewhat nullified by the fact that I already regularly played through story mode a couple of times now that it wouldn't be fresh to do a live com. The third was a standard commentary, and the last was a unscripted commentary. But for both of those ideas, I was not sure the footage that I'd be using for those. So after a long while, I ultimately decided to get footage of the boss battles and do a standard commentary over them. I underwent many twists and turns in the Twisted Metal PS3 journey that led to getting this kind of footage again for an upload on this channel. Before that, long history alert incoming. As you guys can probably tell with the amount of Twisted Metal gameplay I've been uploading lately, I've been on a Twisted Metal binge. I played all the Twisted Metals and recorded gameplay footage of them, but despite being a fan, I still had yet to properly play Twisted Metal PS3. Back when this game was about to release, I believe I attempted to secure an early copy of it at a non-GameStop related store, in a time when I was only aware of EB Games and GameStop as the video gaming stores in existence and no others. The store I went to either didn't have it, or stocked very few early copies that were bought out quickly, though I'm certain the former is the case. However, even when the game eventually released in 2012, I would not actually get the game until about a year later. I can't remember if I personally bought it or if it was gifted to me, but I knew that the moment I popped the game into my PS3, I felt somewhat discouraged from playing it. The first thing that stuck out to me was that the startup time for a game felt pretty long and made me wonder if my disc copy was not in good condition. Then I played the actual game and was irked by the revisions to the control scheme, as well as the way vehicles handled. Vehicles that were slow felt really slow. The cars that were fast felt uncontrollable, especially with turns factored in. In the previous games, specifically the single track slash Incock Inc. slash Eat Sleep Play, whatever one you want to call it, make Twisted Metals, they've always used arcadey controls and physics for the vehicles, so while slow and fast vehicles may be designed as such, they still felt controllable in a way that speed feels more like a number and guiding design principle rather than absolute law. Twisted Metal PS3, which I will shorten to 2012 for the sake of ease, still has those arcadey aspects to its controls and vehicles, but to me it felt like the vehicles control in a more loose manner and not as tightly as they used to. Imagine a dog on a leash. With a slower vehicle, it feels like you're forcefully trying to drag a dog that refuses to budge. With a faster vehicle, it feels like you're trying to rein in a dog from breaking loose and head-tacking a stranger it sees. So load times, control scheme, and overall game feel, all those added up together and I got a Twisted Metal game that I was not itching to play much of. I also read all the horror stories online about how the online component was not working and certain bugs and balancing issues, though those partly affected me in a way, but it wasn't really it didn't really affect me too much from a single player perspective. So I was not encouraged by the three things that I just mentioned before that were whiplash for me when comparing to previous Twisted Metal games, which was again the revamped control scheme, the load times, and the overall feel of the game. On top of that, I was in my Call of Duty phase and sunk most of my game time on that series, so it was a really bad timing for Twisted Metal PS3 in my life. I ended up getting a digital version of 2012 later on when it was on sale on the PS Store, and I was hoping that maybe the digital version might be an improvement, at least in terms of loading times. It wasn't that much an improvement over the physical disc copy, but it did appear to load faster somewhat, though this was not enough for me to consider playing the game. I think the next time I touched a game was with full 4-player split screen during a party, and that was that. Fast forward a decade later, from 2013, I went on an emulator spree and got several emulators and games. One of the emulators was the RPCS3, which is the emulator for the PS3, and I got a few game ISOs for it, one of them being Twisted Metal. The game, however, runs very poorly on the RPCS3, at least on my rig, getting no better than 15 FPS, which was pretty funny when my desktop at this point was capable of running 60 FPS games with good graphical settings. That left Twisted Metal on the PS3 emulator more of a curiosity than anything. Then a Twisted Metal renaissance happened for me. The show was developed and being released on Peacock, which led to Sony re-releasing Twisted Metal 1 and 2 on the PS Store with trophy support. I went ahead and played those games on PS4, and I went to play every Twisted Metal game and uploaded gameplay footage of them, including mods of Twisted Metal 2, 3, and 4. I bought a slim PS2 after years of not having a PS2 since I wrecked my launch day PS2 when I played Kingdom Hearts 2 on its dying breath, just to play and record gameplay footage of Twisted Metal Black and Twisted Metal Head-On. I ordered a copy of Twisted Metal Small Brawl for the sake of completing my Twisted Metal collection, despite already having played it on a PS1 emulator, as well as on my PSP back then for free. I knew they canceled Twisted Metal Harbor City and was made aware of the prototype build that was playable on the PS2 emulator, then found out about the cheat engine someone made that imported maps and vehicles from the prototype over to Head-On, and I got my hands on that, enjoying even more Twisted Metal content. I also played a fan-made Twisted Metal game called Crom's Car Combat, which replicated the Twisted Metal gameplay near perfectly, impressively done on a Unity engine. All this built up to my eventual return in time to finally play Twisted Metal PS3 proper for once, a game that I neglected for over a decade. That's my long, convoluted history for Twisted Metal PS3. When I returned to the game, after playing it for a while, I eventually adapted to the controls and feel of the game, as well as the load times. It's honestly only the startup of the game that still bothers me somewhat, as the load times in general on 2012, be it disc copy or digital version, turned out to not be as bad as I thought. And then, the actual game time I had with 2012 is a convoluted history of its own. I knew beforehand that Twisted Metal PS3 only has two unlockables of note, the laser pistol sidearm weapon, and Warthog as a playable vehicle. So, I found out about importing saves during the time I was doing an emulator binge, and looked for any game save of Twisted Metal PS3 online that I could just place into my PS3 to get instant access. I came across one such save, and then learned the hard way that 1. The PS3 isn't just going to take any game save placed into it. I will need to use programs and tools to reassign the save to make it usable on my PS3. 2. The save file I came across is actually for the disc version of Twisted Metal PS3, and that, for a physical and digital copy of the game, they have completely separate title IDs, so the save file would not be shared between the two versions, despite them otherwise being the same game. I intended to just play the digital version of 2012 and was somewhat bummed out after seeing this. Later, I found out that there was a glitch to let you use infinite weapons in story mode, but this glitch only works with the disc copy of 2012, not digital. Unlocking the laser pistol requires you to complete story mode on Twisted difficulty, and unlocking Warthog requires you to get gold medals on Twisted difficulty on every event. After seeing this, I opted to play the disc version of 2012 to use this glitch and blast through story mode, giving me the laser pistol and Warthog on the disc version, but not the digital version. I was initially content with just having these unlocked on a disc copy, despite using a dishonest method of unlocking them. Then, I found out how to properly reassign PS3 saves using brute force save data, and a save file I found before was properly converted over into a save I could use for a US region disc-based version of Twisted Metal 2012. This could have saved a lot of work from having to unlock stuff myself, but the game experience I had on my disc copy proved invaluable, as I was then leaning towards getting those unlockables on my digital copy of 2012. I found another game save online that is for the digital version, which mentions that all the stuff is unlocked, so I grabbed it, went to reassign a game save, imported it into my PS3, and then it turns out the unlockables are strictly for story mode. You cannot manually select to use the laser pistol or Warthog outside of that. This caveat was not mentioned, which was yet another headache, Given that all these stuff was at least unlocked for story mode, this meant I could jump into Twisted difficulty right away and actually unlock the laser pistol and Warthog legitimately with no infinite weapons glitch. After prevailing against the perils of Twisted difficulty story mode and claiming gold medals on every event, I went out to challenge mode to find that the laser pistol and Warthog are permanently unlocked only for story mode. I can never access them outside of that, ever. So not only did the author of the game save created not mention that the unlockables are only for story mode, they also did not mention, and were probably unaware of the fact, that the unlock method is rendered inaccessible as a result. It's not really much of a loss that I can't use them, as it is just pure frustration that I finally put in the effort and then the game denies me my rewards because of the way the game save parameters were organized. Upon seeing this, I went to hell with this and deleted this save, leaving my digital copy of Twisted Metal to start from scratch for the third time, and I will go through story mode 2 more times, once on normal difficulty to unlock all the stuff that I will need to use for Twisted difficulty, and then Twisted difficulty to legitimately earn the laser pistol and Warthog for a second time on my digital copy. That's what the first couple of seconds of this video was, just to show proof that I gone through story mode and legitimately unlocked Warthog and laser pistol. If you want the TLDR version of this, the too long did not read version of this, I bought Twisted Metal PS3 back in 2013. Didn't play this until 2023. Messed up game saves, didn't like the result, started all over. That's my convoluted history of this game in a nutshell. What do I think of the game now that I've actually played it extensively? I like it, there's plenty of good stuff, but certain design decisions, some questionable and some absolutely baffling, taint the good that Eat Sleep Play have done in this game, to the point that it's ultimately a flawed entry that at least looks pretty, if nothing else. It should be noted that some of these decisions could be explained by the fact that this game was originally built from the ground up to be a multiplayer focused title with no single player, until Sony pushed for a single player option in order to sell Twisted Metal PS3 as a full price retail title. So certain choices that led to those flaws are understandable, but what Eat Sleep Play did have full control over, the flaws I think of in this game are entirely on them. For instance, the vehicles. Having faction-based operators of the vehicles instead of unique individual drivers probably made sense when this was supposed to be a multiplayer-only title, and while they still wanted factions in the final product, I think a complaint that there are only 4 unique drivers instead of a whole cast of personalities like in the original Twisted Metal games would lean towards a nitpick. What's more of an actual complaint is that the special weapons were not handled in an ideal manner. There are too many overlapping specials or very few completely unique specials that aren't used by at least 2 vehicles. For instance, there are 5 shockwave based specials. The execution methods and properties are different, and it could certainly be difficult to make unique specials, but no one told Eat Sleep Play to make a shockwave special that is usable by 5 vehicles. The vehicles almost barely feel like reskins of each other as a result of having so many overlapping specials. In the previous Twisted Metals, you might have an overlap of maybe 2 or 3 vehicles using a similar special, but now we have 3 to 4 cars sharing specials. This one is all on Eat Sleep Play. Spectre was a planned vehicle for 2012, and Kamikaze was actually originally Spectre, but presumably was cut because the Sweet Tooth vehicle will be one to use ghost properties on a special. Kamikaze is a new vehicle and one of the 5 users of Shockwaves, and its primary special is the Flame Door, which is shared with Crimson Fury, a returning vehicle from Twisted Metal 1, Small Brawl, and Head On. And that's very strange when Crimson Fury had laser-based specials previously, except for Small Brawl, where he had a fire-based special, but at least no one in that game had a flamethrower or a flame-based special. None of the other vehicles use laser-based specials. The only thing that's a laser in this game is a laser pistol, so why remove the Crimson Fury vehicle's trademark? This, coupled with the faction-based setup, paints a picture of a lack of individuality. All the vehicles can be driven by anyone, very few vehicles have a special they can truly call their own, and ultimately the stricken down cast consists of returning drivers from previous games given a new context, so there's nothing that could be considered new, and despite having new vehicles and special weapons. Additionally, on a special weapon front, they added either an alternate function or secondary special to vehicles now, with some technically having 3. However, for the vehicles that have alternate function specials instead of a secondary special, the alternate function special tends to be merely powered up versions of their base special. I can't really call that an alternate function, as that basically means there's no reason to use a base special, A proper alternate function special should be along the lines of Meat Wagon or Vermin special, where their base special lets the game auto-target an enemy for okay damage, but the alternate version lets you manually control their special and it's hard to land a hit, but the result is much more damage than the base version. This is how alternate function specials should have worked, not merely be powered up versions like Death Warrants, Roadkills, and Outlaws. These design decisions are a flaw in Eat Sleep Plays then. Another thing that would be a complaint is story mode. I do like that they restructured story mode to feel like individual character-based stories with their own levels, challenges, progression, and boss fights instead of a simple tournament, but the races are completely out of place. Two of the three boss fights that exist are over the top and not in a fun way. You have to play through the character stories in order instead of in any way we want, and the unlocks are stuff you already have access to outside of story mode. You're just unlocking them for use through story mode for the other difficulties. Again, this flaw may be understandable due to the game being multiplayer only originally, but it bears repeating that they didn't need to do it this way. Hell, they could have had the previous Twisted Metal Games tournament mode as essentially the arcade mode, a regular complete X number of levels, face off against a sub-boss and final boss, then ending. They could have used one of the multiple endings they shot for this game and made it exclusive to this arcade/tournament mode, or put other unlockables in to justify its inclusion on top of story mode. It would have been a pure car combat experience as opposed to the variety of different challenge types in story mode, which includes the much hated races. For a record, I'd be fine with races as a minigame in the vein of Head-On where they were optional, not mandatory. David Jaffe, the guy who had a part in making Twisted Metal, never came up with the races. Those were someone else's brainchild, and Jaffe only needed a few seconds to determine that the races were a bad idea, but he kept them in just to appease that designer and maintain a good working relationship. So again, story mode, enjoyed that they restructured it. Did not like some of the events that they included in it, such as the races and Juggernaut battles, and some of the bosses are not fun, and I definitely would have liked a traditional tournament structured mode from previous Twisted Metal games. I like that they added new weapons on top of remapping many of the returning ones. As long as it's not one of the traditional fire/homing/power missiles, all weapon pickups have a skill component to them, and there's also a whole category of sub-weapons called sidearms to replace a standard machine gun with something else. However, they also added a targeting reticle, which was something that was only unique to the reticle weapon from Twisted Metal Black and to a lesser extent Crimson Fury Special from Head-On. This target reticle lets you lock onto or focus on a specific enemy, and you can switch targets, which could let you engage enemies away from the one closest to your vicinity, something that could not be done in the previous Twisted Metal games. Target reticle has a pretty big flaw. Weapons that have homing ability absolutely require a locked-on target, or else the weapon will not home in on a target. It also effectively turns some weapons into another type of missile, such as remote bombs, and some specials will auto-target the enemy for you in a way that they didn't in previous games, like the flamethrower special from Kamikaze and Crimson Fury. All target flamethrowers did exist in the past, including Minion from Twisted Metal Black and Tower 2 from Head-On, but theirs being auto-target made sense when they were designed to have 360 tracking to shoot the flamethrower from all around their vehicles instead of directly from the front. A vehicle that has a front-firing flamethrower like Dumper from Twisted Metal 1 or 2, or Warthog from Twisted Metal Black, they needed manual control to actually keep the flamethrower on target. Now in 2012, as long as you have a locked-on target, the flamethrower special, which fires normally from the front of the vehicle, will stick to an enemy like glue, removing any need for precision. I would have absolutely preferred the targeting reticle to not have so much of a grasp on the way weapons function in 2012. It effectively renders many weapons undodgeable, and given the way the sniper weapon works, despite being a projectile, the targeting system basically turns it into a near hit scan weapon. Of course, there's a big laser warning, as well as the fact that it does not do much damage if you don't wait it out during the warm-up activation, but again, I'll remind you that I only played single player, and trying to unlock the laser pistol in Warthog in Twisted difficulty meant dealing with instant death snipers where the AI will rarely give you any warning when they're using them. So they might as well be hit scanned, as you have no way to defend yourself if there's no laser warning on your vehicle. So I like that what they did with weapons, but their implementation of the targeting reticle system puts a damper on their weapon set of how they are dependent on a targeting system to function, and it dumps down the execution of certain weapons like flamethrowers, and weapons with strong homing capabilities cannot be dodged. I do mostly enjoy the maps apart from Diesel City, Diablo Pass, and LA Skyline. I mean, they're really huge, and that's pretty awesome. And I really liked exploring the maps. But those three maps, two of them are kind of ugly to look at. And, well, no, Diesel City is ugly to look at. Diablo Pass is pretty much designed for the races. It's not really a good combat map. And LA Skyline, it's probably not really good of a successor to the previous rooftop maps. Plus, you can not die from falling just like in Head On. Falling only makes you take massive damage, and I think that's not a cool returning feature from the previous Twisted Metal. I really wish for instant death, and it's the only way to make the rooftop level, which is it's otherwise hard to fall to your death on LA Skyline, but instant death would have made that a lot more of a rooftop map, more in the tradition of Twisted Metal 1, 2, and Black. But this is what we're given with, so I generally prefer sticking with the other maps, which are much more fun to play and much more prettier to look at, much more colorful as well. So overall, I enjoy Twisted Metal 2012. It's a flawed game, but I do think that there's plenty of good, and I really wish that there was a new Twisted Metal on the horizon. There's only been murmurs online, but until the actual game manifests, I can only keep hoping that it'll eventually exist. Anyway, that's the gameplay and commentary. Hope you enjoyed it, and Insanity is out.